Welcome back to Her Shift, the podcast which is all about shifting our beliefs so we can have a goddamn better life. If you're a woman and you want more, you're in the right place. And if you're listening to this recording, that means my software is finally working. I am now 10 days behind my publishing of my podcast. And I don't want to blame the tech, I really don't, but I'm going to blame the tech. So fingers crossed this will keep recording. If it doesn't, I'm going to have to just record straight to YouTube and we're going to have to go from there. But anyway, I've got a really juicy episode. Do you know why? Because I've had a huge shift and I've been wanting to tell everyone about this now for 2 weeks, but I'm so behind with my publishing. If you're like me and you've always struggled with the working week, let's say, the routines, the setup, the structures we have in place, particularly in countries like the UK, probably the States, you know them. When someone asks me, or used to ask me, oh, why are you self-employed? And they'll ask me with a positive tone. It's like, oh, what are the benefits? And, is it because you're creative? You like to be flexible? You're an entrepreneur? You like the freedom, you like the creativity. And I would say those things to them, but I'm going to be totally honest with you. Deep down in my heart, I would think the reason that I'm self-employed, which I've now been for 15 years, is because I couldn't hack it in the normal working week. Never mind the corporate world, never mind the 9 to 5. The structures that we have in place with the 5-day working week, the weekends, so many days holiday a year, the timings we have, the school day. Even if we go right back to the school day, I always struggled. And I would struggle more because I would have really good weeks where I'd be so on fire and I would just like, I've cracked it. I am as good as everyone else now, because I really thought it was only me that felt like every week, most months, I was wading through cement. I was swimming upstream. And the reason that I probably eventually ended up going self-employed wasn't because I took a leap of faith, it's because I really couldn't cope anymore. And that's sad. I needed to have the flexibility and the freedom, because with every job that I'd had previously, I had to take, on almost a monthly basis, a period of sick. And that would bring on such guilt and shame with me. I feel like I was taking advantage of the system. I would also wish that I was more physically unwell, because it was always for my mental health. And now when I look back, I go, no, it was obviously PMDD. And it was also very much to do with my cycle. Anyway, the shift I've had is I found out that men have a 24-hour cycle and that women have a 28-day cycle. Therefore, we're trying to be this round peg fitting into a square hole. We're trying to fit ourselves into a system that was created for men by men. And suddenly it all made sense. And suddenly I thought, wow, I'm just very much fighting against something here. And I've also been completely fighting what my body's been telling me to do. So those times during my period when I need to rest, that is when I fight harder. That is when I swim faster upstream. It's crazy, isn't it, when you start thinking about it like that? But that's what I've been doing. So I have never really, I think, done a 9 to 5. I think the only time I've done a 9 to 5 was when I was pregnant with my first daughter, and I was working for the Australian airline at the time as an air hostess, and I didn't want to fly when I was pregnant. So what they would do is you would work in the office, doing not a lot if I'm quite honest, but that was the nearest I had got to during that time, was 5 days a week working normal office hours. And I did go sick a lot during that time, but I didn't feel as bad, and I certainly got away with it because I was pregnant, so a lot of the time I was genuinely sick. And other jobs that I've had, when I think about it, I've worked in hospitality, I've worked in customer services. I've not worked 9 to 5. And I've mentioned this before, that the longest job I've had without going sick was working for Qantas, because obviously it was far from 9 to 5. You would do a flight and it would be a very long shift, and then you would have downtime in your destination, and then you would fly home, and then you usually got between 3 and 6 days off before another flight. Now, as you can imagine, anyone that's particularly hormonal, suffers from PMS, certainly PMDD, sometimes those flight schedules are going to work really well. They're going to work really, really well for you. And sometimes they are going to be the epitome of the living hell that is Hell Week. If you can imagine, during that week before your period, and then you had to do a long haul flight, and not to lie down, to work it. That door would close on the plane, and if you're anything like me, your skin would feel thin and red raw and highly sensitive and in tune. You're in a tight container, loads of people, very intense, a lot of pressure. You have to put your game face on. You've got to be incredibly professional. You've got to hold it together. You've got to multitask. You've got to be the spirit of Australia while serving people their food at 35,000 feet, in a calm and conscientious way. You have to deal with any problems. You have to deal with rude people. Yeah. And obviously once that door is shut and that plane is taken off, you are quite literally effed. You cannot get off. You cannot go, I want to go home now. Or, yeah, it was. And also there's the fact that once you get there and, okay, you get to finally decompress, you know that in a few days, usually you get 2 days down route, you then have to fly home. Now, sometimes when I'd be down route, I would get my period. I'm like, oh God, I'm knackered, but I can cope with this. But sometimes I would experience the entirety of my whole week over a long haul flight, there and back. And oh God, I shiver to think back to those days, because again, I would just beat myself up. I go, here I am with a dream job and I can't hack it. I really cannot do it. I am exhausted. I am mentally fatigued. I can't cope. I am snappy. I am emotional. We've talked about this before, that sheer pain of emotional pain and physical pain of having to stuff down your feelings to get through whatever you're meant to do. And we do it as women. And we always have. And we might be doing that at home. We might be doing that in front of the family. We might be doing that on the school run. But it's these times that this structure and this routine does not work for us. And we work against it. And not only that, we beat ourselves up for it. So I've heard about cyclical living, and my mind is shook off, is the only way to describe it. I'd heard about cyclical living before. I'd heard about it from different podcasters, and I'd heard about it in the women's mental health space. And of course, I am massively involved in the research to do with PMDD, women's hormones. Obviously, I'm always bringing attention to the PMDD awareness campaign, which I founded. But every now and again, something happens that just makes me go, and I feel a bit daft, because I'm like, how did I never realise this before? And I'm going to guess as well, it's not only me. There'll be so many women who are really game facing it in the structure of the working world, of corporate, of 9 to 5, of a working week, when they would rather be anywhere but there, when their body is telling them to rest, when their body is telling them to take it easy. And all we do is feel shit about ourselves. And cyclical living is very much about having awareness of our cycle and knowing why we feel the way we do at certain times during this 28-day cycle. Now, I know doesn't everyone has a 28-day cycle. It obviously can vary. Certainly for me in my teens and in my 20s, certainly before having children. I think my cycle used between 40 and 50 days. That's how skewed it was. These days, it's very much, I'd say, between 26 and 28 days. I am perimenopausal as well, though, so sometimes it does seem to be getting shorter and shorter. Not a bad thing. But here's another thing that I thought, wow, how daft was I? So, I know I've got PMDD, right? I'm not. I'm a very hormonal, emotional woman. Do I record my period? Yes. Why do I do that? For the sheer practical reason, oh, I have to have tampons and pads with me, and I don't want to be caught short. Would I make a note of my period for any other reason? No. I'd make a note of it, and then I would go, I wish I was a man. I wish I didn't have a period. I'm effectively saying these are God-given birthrights that I have about me as a woman. I am going to shun, I'm going to berate, and I'm going to wish I didn't have. Now, of course, I'm very grateful that I have the biological pieces. That means I have had two incredible, amazing children. Of course, I am grateful for that. But other than that, I've always felt as a woman I've been dealt the short straw. And I'm sure many of you can relate to that. How many of us have gone, oh, I can't wait till I no longer have a period. Oh, my life is great, but I just wish I didn't have this. If I didn't have this, if I didn't have periods, I'd be happy. My life would be amazing. And yes, the amount of times I've looked whimsically, oh God, I wish I was a man. I mean, in some ways, let's say. I really like my feminine energy and I really like being a woman, and I certainly don't want to look like a man, but you know what I mean. I've literally prayed it away. And how sad is that? And to think that the whole time I never looked at the biological and the primitive reasons between cycles, why women have them, why we feel the way we do. I've never, as well, this is another thing that's blown my mind this week, is the impact that the moon has on us as mammals. I've always known that the moon has an effect on the animal kingdom. I saw, turtles laying their eggs on the beach, and obviously, yeah, that I know this is strange, but I think about certainly with the police, they will always say, oh, it's a full moon tonight, so I'm not going to enjoy working my shift tonight because people are going to be idiots. Like, people's mood would change. There would always be more fights on a full moon. So it clearly has an energetic shift, right, on us as humans. But this is right. I cannot get over this. So I started reading Kate Northrup's book, Do Less, Live More, and which is all about cyclical living and embracing who we are as women. And she talks about using apps and considering the moon and the effect it has on us and our cycle and when we have our period. And I thought, you know what, I'll humour her. I'll do it. So I downloaded an app called Stardust. I'll put a note of it in the show notes. And again, my mind is shook off. So it turns out that if we have a regular type cycle, so within a few days here or there, so around about 28 days. Did you know we have our periods around the moon? Did you? Because I did not know this. I thought it was so random. And obviously, different types of them, it wasn't every so many weeks, it was different types. It just did never occur to me. Anyway, so I entered my dates of my last few periods into this app. Now, it turns out that the majority of women either get their period around the full moon or before the full moon. And we also know that women, I didn't know this, that tribally, or if we're in houses with the women, or if we live with other women, we tend to sync our periods. Okay, I understand that. See, I don't get my period around the full moon or before. I get mine as the moon starts to disappear. So on the last day of my period, technically that is as the moon therefore disappears. So it goes from a tiny crescent into nothing. Why? Why is that the case? Why am I not like the majority of other women? There is a reason. And again, my mind is blown. So tribally, if I was in a tribe with other women, and it's all about safety and protection and procreation, right? So while other women are at certain points in their cycle, they need other women in the tribe to be the warrior princesses, to be the warrior queens, to offer them support and love and protection. Obviously, you've got your hunter-gatherers doing their thing outside the tribe. But that made sense because suddenly I thought, you know what? If you've got a tribe of women and they are all on Hell Week together, that ain't safe. That is not good. And there's no men who are going to come back to that tribe if you've got all those women on Hell Week together because they're going to stay well away. So actually I thought, how incredible is nature to say, I will space it out. So some women will have their periods at different times, and it will be to do with the moon. And we'll do that to keep everyone in the tribe safe. Blown, mind blown, absolutely. And suddenly it all just made sense. And then I thought, so hang on. So I've been trying to fit into this man's world that was made for men by men. And I love a bit of patriarchy in the history. It really always, actually, a lot of the stuff that I talk about on here, a lot of the systems that are in place for us, and a lot of the things that don't seem to suit us or fit, or why we behave a certain way we do, a lot of it does stem from the patriarchy, and a lot of it does stem from trying to squash our power. So if we never knew we had these powers, well, if we never knew, you don't know what you don't know. I then thought more about as well that week, that crazy week where I am on fire. I don't know about you, but I just have sometimes these weeks where I am so on top of things. I am like, leave anyone else for dust. I am ticking boxes. I am getting things done. I am creative. I am confident. I am in flow, I think is the word. And at the time, I just wish every week was like that. Because what has happened in the past is that while I'm experiencing this incredible surge of energy and creativity, and I can multitask like a ninja, I also know what's coming. And I know that soon I'm going to hit this flat week where, again, I'm going to feel like I've got thin skin and I'm sensitive to everything and everything's annoying me. And I'm going to get brain fog. And no matter how amazing I was, in a minute that's going to crumble. The following week, I am going to be swimming upstream. And now I know why. I'm thinking, wow, what if we could get so much done during that period in our cycle? So for me, it probably happens about day 7 to day 6 to day 7 to day 14, 15. I think it's called the follicular phase in a women's cycle, where I just feel so on it. And I know that if I was working in the corporate world, or if I was working 9 to 5, I would be able to get a month's worth of work done in that week. I have no doubt, because I've done it. It's like I have set up entire businesses during that time. I have ticked all boxes. I have done a week's worth of meal planning. I have been on time for everything. I've taken the kids to all activities. I have remembered every birthday party. We've all done it, right? And then what I do is I compare myself to how I feel then and how I am in Hell Week. And I go, I am a failure. How can I go from that to that? And with this knowledge of cyclical living and the fact that we have cycles, I'm now beginning to realize that what if I just embraced it? What if I took a more steady, slower pace during Hell Week? What if I worked my work to go, do you know what? I probably won't podcast this week. I'll podcast on my fire week. And then I'll do quieter, more insular work on Hell Week. I'll cross the T's and dot the I's. I'll do admin. I'll sit quietly. I'll look after myself. I'll take it easy. I'll have limited interaction with people. I have in the past podcast during whatever part of my cycle that I'm in. And now it makes complete sense that sometimes I just find it so much easier than others. Sometimes I have done a podcast episode and I can't even remember doing it. And I felt so shaky and my voice has sounded a little bit more high-pitched. And I've struggled. Now, my PMDD is a lot better these days, and I would say that I don't particularly have hell weeks. I just have a definitely low ebb week. But how interesting to think, actually, I could work around this to a point. What if I embraced my follicular fire week and got loads of stuff done? What if I then embraced my luteal phase, which would be potentially the hell week? Took it easy, did less interaction, did smaller easier tasks? What if I got everything sorted and finalised so that when I got my period, when I get my period, for me, certainly, I am mentally a lot calmer. I feel better, but I then am physically exhausted. I feel depleted when I get my period. I have to rest. And certainly for me, the day before I get my period, even now, even with all the changes and the things that I've done to heal from PMDD, I certainly get an hour where I feel like I have the flu. And it might be during the day I have to just lie down because I'm shaking, I'm sweating, I feel like I have the flu. Sometimes I'll fall asleep, and then I literally know like the next day I'm going to get my period. And now again, I would hate my body for that. But what if I didn't hate it? What if I went, okay, get you, I see you. I need to slow down. I need to rest. Because the better, more rested I am, the more on fire I'm going to be once I get my energy back. And what if I just thought, you know what? I've obviously gone down the self-employment route, but what if I now told myself, thank you for doing that. Thank you, younger Anna, for doing that because my body really needed it. And now you don't need to beat yourself up for it. Of course, things are always going to happen when you maybe don't have the mental strength or energy. That's life. But what if that you had so much more control and diary planning, and you weren't just recording your period so you could put, sanitary protection in place? What if you were doing it to go, right, I know I'm going to be shit hot then, so that is when I'm going to try and go for this or this or this. What if I could do that? It's really made me think about if we have a 28-day cycle and men have a 24-hour cycle. Suddenly I'm like, okay. So I know for myself, like, my lobster isn't good past 9 o'clock. I mean, he's not going to have the best, most deepest, most intellectual conversation with you at that point. He is low energy and he's more likely to snap if we have a disagreement. You have the same conversation with him on a morning or around, noontime. Completely different. Completely different. And suddenly I'm thinking about a man's energy levels and how they would deplete over 24 hours and they would re-energize, I guess, overnight. How interesting is that? I actually was thinking that don't men get some type of menopause? Don't they like change? No, they don't, do they? They can keep having kids. Well, wasn't Charlie Chaplin having kids in his 80s? Anyway, it's something to look at. But yeah, it made me appreciate that if I've got a 28-day cycle and men have a 24-hour cycle, maybe we should start researching into that as well so we can understand them. And equally, so with the app that I have, so the Stardust one, you can share that with your partner and they can see where you're at. And I think that could be so educational and benefit them. I know certainly with my lobster, so he is checking on this app and I think it's like, obviously it's a bit of a running joke between us, but I also know he finds it actually quite interesting because my mood really does seem to suit where I am in the calendar. And it's giving him information. It makes him go, is she being like that because? Or is it because of where she's at? You can also put little notes on this app about, please send chocolate, I need extra cuddles, or get away from me. Not that I would ever say that. But I thought, wow, how actually this could be really benefit so many people and their relationships. So yeah, this isn't a plug for the Stardust app. It's just I will put the link for that particular app. But I know there's lots of other apps, and there's more being created all the time. This could be really, really good for us. So why have I been so excited to share this shift with me? And also, I'm aware that some of you might already know this, and you might be listening going, Anna, you div, how did you not know this? Well, I didn't. Or if I did, I've chosen to ignore it. I have chosen to hate that particular part of my body, of my biology. I've decided to stuff it down, to not deal with it, to not embrace it, to not learn about it. And to not honour my body and to not honour my cycle. But I am going to make changes there. And I appreciate this is going to take a little bit of time. But I would also put it out there for you to join me. And if we're all a bit more in tune with our cycle and cyclical living and the moon and where we're at, it just gives us more understanding, grows the community, and it just means we can support each other a lot more. I mean, I'm not certainly going to start working with clients and go, right, so you tell me where you are in your cycle. But I suddenly have this realization that actually we all feel it, we all go through it. Having said that, of course, we're all going to be friends with someone who their hormones do not change throughout the entire month. Certainly, one of my very close friends is like that. In fact, she said to me she's never felt hormonal or needed chocolate or cuddle in her life. There we go. There's always one. However, if, like me, this has intrigued you or made you think this could be a game changer, or certainly it would be, interesting to look at, please, please, please let me know. Give me a message. Start tracking your cycle. Have a look on one of the apps. Have a look on the Stardust app. See where you are with the moon, and let me know if then you can look on your calendar and start planning your life a little bit more around that. Now, I appreciate that a lot of people do work on the 5-day week or 9 to 5, or with pretty unflexible shifts. I get that. But I'm sure if you're giving yourself the knowledge and therefore the grace to honour yourself a bit more during this time, I can only see that as a good thing. Yes, you might still have to go to work and you might have to wade through mud, swim upstream at a time that you're really, really struggling to focus and have clarity. But with this knowledge, surely instead of beating yourself up and feeling guilty for it, with that knowledge, it was like, you know what? I'm like feeling like this for a reason. Flat tire. Totally get it. And I know I won't feel like this soon. I think it's things like this, knowledge really helps with our healing. And that's something that I've certainly, realised over the last few years. Even if it can't change how we feel or, our life today, just having that knowledge gives us that reassurance. And it certainly offers people like me a little bit more comfort. Let me know what you think. So, cyclical living. That's what this episode has been about. I hope that isn't somewhere resonated with you. I'd love to hear from you as always. I'm sorry this episode is so late coming out. It's not my usual. I am about to enter my follicular phase, so hopefully next week's episode will be fire. And I've got another juicy topic to talk about there as well. So until then, I'm just going to say, please keep going. You are doing amazing. You're doing amazing living in this man's world created for men by men. You are so much stronger than you think. Please keep going, and as always, sending all my love.